On this episode of Three Black Guys with the Mic, we're so excited today because we got MSNBC political contributor and former head of the RNC, Mr. Michael Steele today. Going to talk about Democrats, Republicans, Donald Trump, and more. Plus, you're not going to believe his top 5 MCs of all time. It starts right now on this episode of Three Black Guys with the Mic.
First of all, let me tell you something. Lamont is just full of
Sometimes my mama said, when you don't have nothing nice to say, you should be quiet.
People say that Stephen A. is a coon. You agree with that? Everybody got quiet on that one? Okay. Go ahead.
Rudy Giuliani practices voodoo. So he put a voodoo hex on my girl, Hillary, and that's why she got woozy. And the Secret Service had to prop her up and put her in the van.
But take us to a break, my dude.
It was voodoo, son.
I don't know about that voodoo.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, welcome. This is Three Black Guys with a Mic. It's Black History Month, and this month we want to highlight those who have achieved in Black history. We salute Albert King, NBA basketball great and Wendy's franchise owner. Albert King has played for the Washington Bullets, San Antonio Spurs, and the Philadelphia 76ers. In 1981, Albert King was picked 10th overall in the first round to the New Jersey Nets. But Albert didn't stop at basketball. Albert continues to score big in the business world with Wendy's. That's right, Albert King is one of the only African-American men to own a Wendy's franchise. Name and statistics aside, no one gave Albert any restaurants. He earned them, owning 3 Wendy's full-service restaurants in the New Jersey area. For Black History Month, we salute Albert King, NBA basketball legend and Wendy's franchise owner. Now, let's start the show.
Mr. Michael Steele.
What's up? How you doing?
What's happening? So this is Maynard, as you know, and I have on the line here Spud and Lamont, the other 2 black guys with a mic here. We appreciate you being able to join us real quick.
So, Mr. Steele, the thing that we do is, and the reason why we created this podcast is to pretty much kind of talk about politics and talk about hip-hop and talk about, things in the African-American community, because we kind of felt like there wasn't enough, dialogue, especially with African-American men, and our job is to be able to hopefully move, the needle forward when it comes to politics and hopefully engage more African-American men in being a part of the political process. You've been a part of the political process for a while now. And so what would you say, to African-American men and the reason why they should engage in voting, learning about, the candidates, learning about, especially the midterm election that's coming up and the importance of them being a part of the political process?
Well, you, in asking the question, have actually given the answer. All of the things that you just said are the very reasons why the African-American community at large, but specifically black men, need to take account of our situation as a community and step into the leadership required to move our agenda. We see black women doing that at a phenomenal level and in phenomenal ways. We just saw the impact of black women on the special election in Alabama.
Right.
And what a difference that makes. True to form, though, as in all households in America, women are the deciders ultimately. But that doesn't mean that men don't play a role and shouldn't play a role. I specifically over the years have talked to and mentored a lot of young black men about their role and their responsibility. I remember when I was lieutenant governor, going to our local in Baltimore, going to the community center for young men who were in the system, right, and dealing with the criminal justice system as a lot of young men oftentimes find themselves, unfortunately, and just telling them, look, this is not the definition of your future. You have more control and power over what you do next. So don't buy into the hype that there is no way out, there's no way up, and fall into that trap. You make the difference, and it begins with a high degree of self-determination, and then you bring that into the body politics. You you make a stance around principled ideas. And I think that's where Black men have a chance to really sort of, grind down, if you will, on what our agenda is, how important it is to speak to that, and how important it is to go out and make a difference on that front, and not give in to the stereotyped, views of Black men generally, which we all know.
So, Mr. Steele, you've had
call me Michael, please. Call me
Oh,
Michael.
great! Thank you. Yeah, that's my homie Mike right there.
Man, making me feel like I'm England. Mr. Steele, man. Come on.
Yeah, all right. There it is. We opened it up. Yeah, we got to have a question about the elephant in the room, man. You come to us as this Black conservative Republican, like. Right. I know in a lot of circles that Black folks will be looking at you kind of from the side, like, yo, what's up with this? Because Blacks have been, loyal to the Democrats since the switch of the Dixiecrat to Democrat that we know today.
Right.
What are the reasons why, help me make a better decision about becoming a Republican? Like, I'm ready to come over. Tell me why.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I have to be honest, it's one of the things that oftentimes has annoyed many members of my party with me. I tend to annoy them on a regular basis, so I'm kind of used to it from that standpoint, in that I've never looked at the art of persuasion and saying, you need to be a Republican because. Mm-hmm. Because my journey is very different from yours. Yours is going to be very different from anyone else's out there, whether it's Lamont, whoever. And the fact is, what I say is, assess what your values are, assess what you value, and then find the politics that aligns with that. Because you will find oftentimes, as it is the case in the Black community, that we tend to be a center-right community. We're church-going, God-fearing, strong supporters of our Constitution and the American dream. Of course, we built this dream that a lot of people take advantage of. So we have a very unique history and relationship to this country, number one. So I think understanding that as a baseline is important. Look, as a young man, my mama told me, don't be a Democrat because I'm a Democrat. Don't be something because other people are. You define who you are, and some folks may come to that, other folks may reject it, but you will be in a space that you own and occupy for you. And that's kind of how I've done my politics, which is why even within the GOP, I'm considered somewhat of an outsider because I have not come through it the way a lot of folks have. I've come through it
because you're Black.
Right. I've come through it as a Black man from the Black perspective. And I think that has a very different way of translating itself in my politics. So, I get sick and tired when I hear Republicans saying, well, Black folks should be with us because, they're conservative too. I said, well, what makes them conservative? Well, they go to church on Sunday and they, for the family and da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, so are you addressing their concerns about the vote? Are you addressing their concerns about how their communities are continued to be redlined by banks? Are you addressing their concerns about criminal justice and the fact that Black men are preyed on by the system and by police and just kind of going through that litany? And they look at you with this glazed over view, perspective, and say, are you saying that those are liberal issues? I'm not. I'm saying that there are issues, period, for Black people.
They're American
and you can
issues.
address those, right, for America and for all Americans, quite honestly. But in some cases, somewhat unique to how they are played out in the Black community. I said, address that. And you can address that through the conservative principles that you have: limited government, expansion of economic and individual rights and liberties, et cetera, around a set of policies that will show African Americans we're serious, we're engaged, we know what your issues are, and we're willing to do something about it. It's not just enough to stand up at a microphone and say, what do you have to lose? I have a lot to lose, particularly if you get it wrong.
So Michael, let me ask you this question. So how did we get here today? How did we get to, and I've been accused on this podcast of being, a Donald Trump supporter, although I always say that
Right.
he is winning, even though his approval rating may be where it is, although he
Well,
may
it
have.
depends on how you define winning.
Exactly. But here's my question, and I want to get into that too. But how was he able to garner the support of the Republican Party? How did this happen when a lot of the policies, his method of delivery, his old energy is something totally different than what the Republican Party, in my opinion, it has been and what is all about? How did this happen? And can you define the word winning in your eyes? Because I've done it several times.
Well,
Go ahead.
yeah, I would say that he's doing what he's doing largely because of the idea that there's a lack of leadership. There's a void in that pool, if you will, that he actually took advantage of. I remember telling a number of people during the campaign that they needed to be aware of what was happening because Donald Trump was basically filling in a gap. Since Reagan, there has been this constant struggle within the Republican Party over its direction, what conservatism means, what republicanism means, all those things that for now a generation now have been left sort of out there for people to sort of define. And what you saw with Trump, and again, you had these instances like the Tea Party and other sort of moments in which it was very clear that there was a void that was being filled by a grassroots and activist base that had grown fed up and tired. He took advantage of that and used it in a way against the party. He leveraged it against the party. Can't blame him for that. Look, if you let me, come into your home and disrupt your house and put my imprimatur on it to put my rules in it, you do nothing to respond. Guess what? I'm going to take over your house, and that's exactly what you're seeing. Because the man's not a conservative, he's not a Republican.
Exactly.
He is, he's a populist of sorts. Donald Trump has never been really moored or anchored philosophically to anything. And
so you're saying he thugged his way in this? He's a thug.
Well, yeah. I mean, yeah. He sort of bogart his way in the room and said, "Okay, look at these saps in this room. I can do this. I can take advantage of this," and he did. You had 15 other people governors, senators, congressmen, business leaders standing on a stage with him, and he bested all of them. How was he able to do that? Because they never understood him. They never understood what he was doing. They were playing conventional politics in an unconventional environment. Exactly. And that was his advantage. Now he's president, and yet again, it's a conventional environment in which he's acting unconventionally, and that's something that you see as part of the disruption that is critical to his success as president, but also to the party. What does the party look like when he's done? People say, well, he's winning, he's successful, and I say it's a mixed bag because of the fact that, you got a tax cut passed, but, numbers are coming out now showing that people are saying, well, I'm not really seeing a real difference in my paycheck, which if everybody did their homework would have known that was the case because the average tax benefit from this plan for the middle class worker was about $20 a week, $20 every 2 weeks. Wow. $40 a month.
And if your insurance went up or any of those other things could have mitigated that even that much.
Absolutely.
So let me ask you.
The president still has more defining to do.
Right. So in regards to going back to what you were saying in regards to the GOP, like when I look at even the Trump, election night and, the Romney, when you see the GOP, there's a lack of diversity there when it comes to, black and brown people. I mean, how does the GOP, and I know, I don't know if it's hip hop. How does the GOP recruit more black and brown people to be a part of the future of the Republican Party? Because it's like when you see it, it's like all white men.
Well, that's a party. That's a problem of opportunity. The fact of the matter is there are a significant number of African Americans who belong to the GOP. The problem with the party is they don't showcase them. They don't show the rest of America who they are. And they don't do a very good job of elevating them through the political system. As I said, I was totally outside the system as a young man. No one embraced me and said, "Oh, gee, let's put you on the track to become the chairman of Prince George's County Republican Central Committee or the state party or lieutenant governor or national chairman." There was no effort. And they do that with the white boys. They do that all the time. But they don't necessarily do that with respect to the African Americans, Hispanics, women who have been a part of and active in the party for a long time. It is a shortcoming, and it's almost sort of a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense that the party doesn't do the things it needs to do to promote those people, but it's not, promoting those people because it's not doing the things it needs to do. So it's sort of this sort of cycle that they sort of get trapped in. And, during my chairmanship, we did some things. We talked about hip hop republicanism because I believe very much in that entrepreneurial link between the Republican philosophy on and policy on money and entrepreneurism to what I see as an active action by leaders of the hip hop community, the businessmen and women who defined a generation, not just through music, but in business. I mean, you look at the elevation and the empowerment that has been developed around the hip hop culture, if you will. It's very powerful. I remember when I was lieutenant governor hosting a hip hop summit in Maryland with my buddy Russell Simmons, and people thought, "Well, what the hell are you doing?" I'm like, "Well, because I'm going to go to the action point. I'm going to go to where the action is." So we spent the day at Bowie State University, Morgan. We focused on our HBCUs, and we told folks, "Look, don't come here thinking this is going to be a hip hop summit concert. This is a hip hop summit on growth and the economy and what your personal. So come with your business plan, come with your ideas, your entrepreneurial spirit." And we spent the day talking about how we grow wealth, what I call legacy wealth, in our own community through the mechanisms and examples that we see in hip hop. And it was phenomenal. People were stunned about that. So if Republicans did more of that, I don't worry about the growth of Black folks coming into the party because it's a natural affiliation that you create. If I identify with what you're doing, I'm more than likely going to want to be a part of it in some way.
Oh, so Mike, well, let me ask this, man. We have to kind of, where African Americans typically see the Republican Party, we have to figure out, or I think the Republican Party has to be truthful. There is a big piece of what we see on our side. There's got to be truth that the Republican Party has a large population or some feeling of racism and misogyny. And it's in what you see in Fox News, like, yo, when Laura Ingraham said the other day, LeBron James just shut up and dribbled a ball. Yo, that's dismissive to this Black man. And we know that Black sports entertainers have been a train through which a lot of our civil rights have come, whether it was Tommy Smith or Jackie Robinson or Paul Robeson or Curtis Flood. When will the Republican Party cop to that? When will the Republican Party cop to being racist?
They won't unless you show it out, unless you push back on it, and they think. I mean, Laura saying that was appealing solely to a Fox audience. That's it. It has no resonance outside of that. So what I find happening is the Republicans are speaking increasingly to a smaller and smaller audience of people. More and more Americans are tuning them out and turning them off. They're no longer buying what Reagan was talking about, because what that was is now become, LeBron should just shut up and dribble. And even Reagan learned from the mistake he made when he started talking about welfare queens and realized
states' rights.
Not consistent. Right, exactly. That's not consistent with the overarching vision that he had as president. I get the politics of it, and I know how that plays out. But at the end of the day, it's going to be incumbent on leaders in the party to say to the Laura Ingrams of the world, okay, that's your view, God bless you, but that's not who we are. But to be honest with you, we're not in that space right now. I get it. We're totally not in that space right now. I've watched with a great deal of pain, the leadership of my party embrace a guy like Roy Moore, who stand behind a candidate, now president, who looked America in the eye and go, David Duke? I don't know who's David Duke. I don't know anything about David Duke. What the hell are you talking about?
This is on some bullshit.
Right. It's total bullshit. And then to come back around and get in front of a microphone and talk about, well, what do black folks have to lose? Well, we have a lot to lose if you don't recognize who the hell David Duke is. Let's start with that.
I mean, it's like this man it's like he didn't pass ninth grade civics as well. I mean, he's talking about firing judges in the Ninth Circuit, and he's just going to, what I understand from a tweet that he just sent out in reference to the shootings in Florida and his own case, the FBI has just 7 agents what the hell? This dude doesn't understand.
And I think, again, the strength that Trump brings is communication. There's no doubt about it. He's able to communicate an idea, a visual, and it makes sense. He created part of the creation of reality television. He has been in people's homes, and they have been his audience for the last 12 years. Now he runs for office, and all he did, and did very effectively, and continues to do, is to translate his audience into voters. And so, again, it goes back to the point I was making. From a political standpoint, he's speaking to a narrower, smaller audience, as we see with Fox and folks like Laura, who are, calling out guys like LeBron James because you disagree with what they have to say. Well, little things that I thought Republicans stood for was the First Amendment, which would allow you to say whatever the hell you want to say to whomever you want to say it. And so the fact of the matter is, because you disagree with that speech, you don't get to shut it down. There are those now, unfortunately, who believe very much in that. And again, keeping in mind, these are some of the same people who railed against the left back in the 60s and the 70s and at other periods of time, and even recently, who wanted to suppress speech because they didn't like certain things being said. What's good for the goose is good for the gander. You can't have it both ways. And I think we need to be honest about that. And again, I don't think you're going to be able to convince a community, a community of color, whether it's Hispanic, African American, whatever, that you have the solutions, that you have an agenda that they can appreciate when they look at your behavior, they listen to your words, and they see themselves further alienated from that.
Is this an 8-year president? Do you think Donald Trump has 8 years?
I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, well, he's done. No, I think he can. I think, in fact, if Donald, this is something that we all need to think about, be honest about. If an election is held for his reelection today, he wins. And I think that bothers a lot of people and it's disconcerting. But then you have to understand, well, what have you done to change the landscape? Where is the oppositional voice that's going to defeat him? It's not enough to hate Trump. It's not enough to not like Trump. You can't beat something with nothing. And the fact of the matter is the Democrats don't have a countermeasure. And quite honestly, Republicans don't have one either. I mean, you're talking about people primarying the president and all of this. That's not going to get in at this point. That's not going to go anywhere. So Donald Trump is recognizing where he fits right now in the political landscape, and he likes the odds because they're stacked right now in his favor. Will that change? Yeah, potentially it could this November. Voters go to the polls and say, like they did in 2006, we do not like this president and the direction in which he's taken the country. Back in 2006, it was the war in Iraq. Today, it's a bunch of socially related things around race and women, power, the economy. And if they come and say, we want to change, and they start impacting that change at the ballot box this November, yeah, you can begin to see some things change in the political landscape for the president and the party going. I'm
about to get you in some trouble with some folks. I need to know this, man. Listen, man. Right. What's up with white men? Why they mad at us, man? Why they so angry?
That's one of those questions you don't have to answer, Michael, by the way.
No. Actually, no. It's actually, you know what, gentlemen? It's a very important question. It is absolutely, in my view, a very important question because it goes from me to the heart of what our problem is to this day. And it's all about race. No matter how you cut it, I know a lot of people focus on Hispanics and they focus on Asian. In this country, there is still the definition of race in this country is still a black and white thing.
Right.
It is the relationship of the black man to the white man. It is the relationship of money, power, politics, and who gets to play and who doesn't. You cannot escape the fact that black folks built this thing called America. Mm-hmm. That in one sense for white folks, they're like, yeah, we get that history, we understand that. But where it's starting to change is on a number of fronts. One, our inability to still deal with the issues of race. When you talk about the relationship of black men to the criminal justice system, for example, and the racial overtones and undertones which drive that, no one wants to ever, white folks go, well, he was probably was committing a crime. No, he was standing on the corner with a cigarette saying, hey, anybody want to buy a pack of cigarettes, right? You don't have to choke a man out because he's selling cigarettes, okay? So from that,
dude, you're gonna get kicked out. You're gonna get kicked out. You know what? You're gonna get kicked out of the party. Lamont,
listen, Michael, don't let you get kicked out of the GOP because of us. We don't want that,
right? Well, Lamont, can we change it to 4 black guys with a mic because he might need a
job? No, but this is our truth, and that goes to the second point, which is the truth of the matter is the country's changing. It's looking a lot less white, and it will be a lot less white. And the fact of the matter is, it's the fear. That's at the core of this. That's what drives a lot of this is the fear that you're losing power, you're losing position, you're losing money, you're losing control. America is no longer going to be defined as white. While no one will come out and say that, that's how they act. That's how they put it out there. But the thing about, and the irony is that our founding fathers never saw the country that way, ultimately. Because if they did, then they would have set up a system that's a lot different from the one we have now. It would have been much more protective of white privilege and class. And to the extent that you can argue for a significant part of the history that white privilege and class was protected, the strength of those 3 words, we the people, the strength of the Constitution, the strength of the Bill of Rights, the strength of all those grand ideas were taken to heart by the very people who built the country. Black slaves, now free black men and women. And the country's changing, and it's changing to look more like us. Just look at what culturally was happening. The adoption of black culture, the adoption of black entrepreneurism, all of these things, they want without cost. And unfortunately, that's not how the game is played. And when we are playing the game as well, if not better than they are, that's a problem. And people are afraid of that.
So Michael, let me ask you this. And I know you don't have a crystal ball. I get and I understand, the midterms are coming, but I just feel like this Donald Trump guy, he has this this Teflon Don kind of armor around him. I mean, we got a guy that has numerous women who have gone on the record of stating that he's sexually assaulted them. He's on.
Pussy.
Whoa, Maynard, whoa, relax. We have a guest, Maynard. We don't do that. Okay. We have a president.
It is what it is.
The president can say it.
Yeah.
I'm following leadership.
Right. We have a president who, in my eyes, he colluded with the Russians. He had his people collude. So we have a guy who, I understand the power of the NRA, but he didn't even give us any words of comfort when, we had that tragedy down in Florida. I mean, we have a guy in the White House that is the leader of this country that is kind of like, what would somebody say? P.T. Barnum. He's like the leader of the circus, and I feel like he enjoys that. He thrives off of that. And if you understand his history from, bankrupting casinos to selling pizza to all of the things that he's done over the years, it's like I really believe that he really could get another shot at this. So my question is the RNC going to stand for that? When do we?
It's not a question of whether the RNC will stand for it. It's a question will the country stand for it. Right. Look, Donald Trump is a reflection of us. As much as we may complain and moan and groan about it, you can have people scream out, "I didn't vote for him." Okay, yeah, but you know what? Under our rules, the way we elect a president, yeah, he won. He won fairly. Americans. I mean, look, he won white women. All right? Mm-hmm. You want to understand what we're talking about here. After everything that we know, grabbing the pussy, the affairs, all of that, all of the misogyny, all the crazy things he was saying about women, he won white women. Educated white women voted for him last November. All the stuff he said about Hispanics, from building a wall to Mexicans and murderers and rapists, he took 30% of the Hispanic vote. Everything he said about the black community and the denials of David Duke, the cover that he gave to the racist KKK types who glommed onto his campaign, he still took 10% of the black vote. So you tell me he's not a reflection of us. Because the fact of the matter is, at the end of the day, he appealed to the basest instincts possible. And those base instincts ran the gamut from the fear of the browning of America to the fear that I won't have a job tomorrow.
Hey, Michael,
yeah.
Real quick, let me ask this, Maynard, real quick. But so let me just ask, because RNC is, the Second Amendment, but with the tragedy of Vegas and now the tragedy of Florida, and it always seems to be like this pushback on gun control. What are your thoughts on gun control in America? And should we be looking to really work from a bipartisan perspective to fix gun control, or is it a mental health issue, which a lot of Trump said in about Vegas, and why is it some Republicans continuously ignoring gun control in this country, and what are your thoughts on it?
Well, a couple of things, a couple of ways to look at this. First off, there's a lot of gun control law on the books. So it's not a question of, not having gun control. We do have gun control laws on the books. So let's start with enforcing the laws that are on the books, number one. Number two, yes, we now need to reassess those laws. We need to reassess certain aspects of those laws relevant to issues like mental health, relative to issues like voter ID, identifying who the individual is that is buying the weapon or wants to buy this gun. So having the kinds of background checks and in place to support the governing laws that are already in place, I think is important. I think that, and I tweeted this out the day after the Florida tragedy, that my hope for this was that the students would be the ones who would seize this moment and change the direction on the subject, because the adults are either too afraid or incapable of doing it. Mm-hmm. And so far, my hope is coming true. It's being realized.
Yeah,
I think I think the next step will be to see whether or not those students in Florida can galvanize this into a national movement among students, the victims of other high schools and elementary school shootings coming together under one banner to say enough.
The adults
so
have
it's not
got
a question.
to listen. The adults have got, because these
Yes.
students, they can
They
out tweet
gotta
and
listen.
out Instagram and out Snapchat.
Yeah, it's a very different environment than it's been before.
Yeah, there's no longer the one way, authoritative communication style does no longer exist. FDR could sit and have fireside chats and the world listened and we just took from him. Yo, these kids are like, that little girl said on TV the other day, if you're gonna be with us, then great. If you're not, then good luck. I heard her say, yo, we coming for your neck. We ain't playing. And these kids ain't playing.
And why that's important is that these aren't Columbine, these aren't Sandy Hook kids who were, grade school kids. These are high schoolers. These are 17 and 18-year-olds. These are individuals who will likely be of age to vote this November. And even to the extent that they aren't voting age, they're freshmen and juniors and sophomores, they can be part of a galvanizing force that turns out voters. And that's going to be something important to watch this fall.
So when you were head of the GOP, the RNC, whatever you want to call it, as you said, try to incorporate hip hop into what the GOP was doing as a means to reach out to others. And I think I know why it kind of went off the rails. There's a story, guys. Y'all take a look at it. GOP chairman Michael Steele gets jiggy with his intern. And, I'm just saying, that's not a good look. But that's okay. The next time when you want to do something like, let us know.
What's wrong with Jiggy? That's a Will Smith record.
I'm just saying the pictures are not hot. You got five with five interns, all who are white, and like, yo, that wasn't hot. You need us to be a part of this, my dude.
Well, number one, you're right. Number two, we did have the interns in the intern program are born out of college Republican programs, teenage Republican programs around the country. Those are programs that African American kids generally aren't a part of. So, I think during my 2 years as chairman, we may have had 3 or 4 black interns. We tried to get as many as we could into that process. But, look, these are young kids. I can't fault them. I fault the system. And we try to change that system to sort of get it more integrative into communities of colors, going to black communities, black Republicans that we were talking about before that are out around the country saying, hey, give us young men and women who, are in school here in Washington or coming to Washington, we get them in the internship program. So that's the backstory to that. But given that's what we had, the idea was to have fun with these kids. They wanted to take pictures that were not your conventional, oh, gee, let's stand here and, with our hands folded in front of us with this plastered smile on our face. So I figured, okay, well, let's mix it up a little bit and let's get down and get dirty. So we did.
Okay. All right. So in the spirit of getting down and get dirty, as we kind of shared with you before we start getting jiggy with it. In the spirit of getting jiggy with it.
Maynard, can we do something a little bit more up to date than jiggy?
Well, I'm trying to make sure I give Michael an opportunity to, I want to bring his full fire with this.
Okay.
My dude, we are going to need you to drop those top 5 MCs of your favorite top 5 rappers. And let me just let you know, others have come in here to this arena, and they came in here with that, and we have smack weak shit out of the arena with that. So you got to come with a hard top 5.
With you today?
Wow, what's going on? He's Michael Steele, man.
Is it the weather, Maynard? Like
he knows he can't come in here weak.
It gotta be the weather, Mr. Steele. You
right,
said you definitely got one.
I'm gonna save my top one for last.
And listen, you don't have to do them in any order either.
All right. But the last one I give you is my number one. But the other 4 I'm about to give you, as I've thought through this thing, they're not necessarily in any order of preference, because for me, the thing about hip hop artists is how they define the art. Number 1. Number 2 is how they express the community.
Lamont, this is
and number
Lamont.
three,
This is what's called a filibuster, Lamont. This is a filibuster.
and number three is how it makes you feel, how it moves you. So one of the artists I'm going to tell you it's actually a combo, Missy Elliott and Salt and Pepper. I think they do those three things very well and have done those three things very well. Particularly with Missy Elliott, for me, was just she came on strong, she stayed strong. Even when she faded, she came back strong. And again, sort of reflecting this idea of, the community and sort of expressing that. So Missy Elliott is part of my top five. Clearly, Tupac, just totally definitional, along with Biggie Smalls, Notorious B.I.G. Again, definitional. Eminem, always enjoyed his flow. His lyrics are they're just like killer. They're right on point. He, for a white kid, he sort of expresses very well. And, and his lyrics sort of get you in the groove. They're quick, they're short, they're fast, they're whatever. So I've always liked his style. But my number one, the dog of dogs, is the Snoop Dogg. I mean, just my boy.
Wow. Wait. Spud, I know we hard on time, but we got to break this down a little bit. Hold on now. Hold up.
I respect him on Snoop. Snoop is dope.
No. He has a respectable list, but I think we have to do a substitution. Michael doesn't
always substitute somebody else's top five.
Right. Lamont, you always doing that to somebody.
Wait a minute, you sound like a Democrat. You just gonna substitute because you don't like what I put down?
So Michael, when you're at the Congressional Black Caucus, the after party, and then Salt and Pepper Push It comes on, that's the one that gets you on the dance floor?
Well, it could. You're pushing it the right way, yeah. But, I don't understand. Look, gin and juice? Are you kidding me?
Right. Okay.
What?
I don't got no argument with Snoop. I don't got no argument with Snoop.
You ain't got no J in there? No Jay-Z?
Yeah. No, I think
it's maybe.
I think, but that's conventional.
You got a hard five. You got a hard five. We can't front on your five. I mean,
look, you kind of expect. Tupac and Biggie. That's sort of anchor pieces. Jay-Z, yes, I'm sure I'm not sure. I know it's part of that. That the strength of those three things I talked about, but when I'm looking at folks who've sort of taken the form and sort of defined that space initially, I don't know how you get around guys like Snoop and Missy Elliott and folks like that, because they're old school, but they bring new school, so it's all good for me. Everybody has I'm not, that's my list. You don't like it?
I love it. I love it.
Ladies and gentlemen, we want to thank MC Michael Steele for coming and putting it down with us. Mr. Steele, it's excellent. It was a pleasure to speak with you. Share with us a little bit about what we should know. I know you got the radio program and you on MSM. You're all over the place. What should people know and how to find you and all that good stuff?
Well, you can track me on Twitter at Michael Steele, straight up. You can follow me on my website, the Steele Forum, steeleforum.com, and I'm on MSNBC pretty much every day. And follow me on radio, Sirius XM POTUS Channel 124, weeknights from 6 to 9. So nice. We do a program, Steele and Unger, in which we debate big and small ideas, and we have a lot of fun.
We'll come on and debate with you.
You're going to write another book?
Huh?
You're going to write another book?
I'm actually in the process of writing a book now, and one of the aspects that we're looking at is blacks in the GOP. So this was very instructive conversation around that. So nice. I'm looking at that, and hopefully we'll have it all locked in the next couple of weeks and start writing.
Did y'all hear that? We getting a check off of the book, y'all. He said we got a royalty coming.
but when you do finish the book, you definitely got to come back. And, if you need more black men to debate, we would love to come on, and debate with you on POTUS. What is that, 126?
Oh, yeah, that'd be great to have you guys on.
Yeah, that would be
great. Excellent. We ready, man.
Yeah.
Yo,
Michael Steele, thank you. I'm sorry. Go ahead, man.
Yeah, I was saying the same thing. Thank you. Thank you so much.
My pleasure. It's always good to hang out with the fellas.
All right, man.
Have a good one. Thank you so very much. We appreciate it.
All right, take care.
All right, peace.
Hello.